I never believed in ghosts. I always thought the stories about our school being haunted were just silly tales to scare freshmen. But that was before I encountered something I can't explain. My name is Jordan, and I attend Blackwood High, a school with a long history and more than its fair share of rumors. From the day I stepped into its towering Gothic structure, with its stone gargoyles and ivy-covered walls, I was fascinated by its eerie charm. My friends and I would often laugh off the spooky stories, treating them as fodder for late-night dares and sleepover ghost tales. It was during my junior year that things changed. It started innocently enough. Mrs. Henderson, our history teacher, assigned us a project on the early days of the school, which had been founded in the late 1800s. Each group had to research a different aspect of the school's history. My group, consisting of my best friends Emily, Mike, and Sarah, was assigned to look into the school's original architecture. One afternoon, we decided to visit the school archives, located in the basement. The entrance was a small, unassuming door near the back of the library. We had to get permission from Mr. Thompson, the librarian, to go down there. He handed us the key with a grave look, warning us to be careful. We laughed it off, thinking he was just adding to the mystery for fun. With the key in hand, we descended the creaky wooden stairs into the musty basement. The archives were a maze of old shelves, filled with dusty books and crumbling documents. We split up to cover more ground. I found myself drawn to a section labeled Original Blueprints. As I pulled out an old roll of parchment, a smaller yellowed document fell to the floor. Picking it up, I saw it was a map of the school, but not like any map I had ever seen. It showed a series of hallways and rooms that didn't exist in the current building layout. Excited, I called my friends over to see it. We gathered around, eyes wide with curiosity. The map indicated an old hallway that should be accessible through a door behind the stage in the auditorium. Our curiosity piqued, we decided to investigate after school. The auditorium was dark and empty as we sneaked in. The heavy curtains cast long shadows, and the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. We climbed onto the stage and made our way to the back, where we found a door partially hidden behind a stack of old props. We pushed it open with a creak, revealing a narrow, dust-covered corridor. The air inside was stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in decades. Our flashlights flickered to life, casting eerie beams along the walls. The corridor stretched out before us, disappearing into darkness. We walked cautiously, the sound of our footsteps echoing off the walls. After a few minutes, we came to a fork in the path. The map indicated we should take the left passage. As we turned the corner, the temperature seemed to drop. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter around me. The walls here were lined with old lockers, their doors slightly ajar. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Mike's bravado faded as we continued down the hallway until we reached a large wooden door. According to the map, this was once the headmaster's office. I hesitated before pushing it open. The room beyond was unlike anything I had expected. It was an old office, preserved in time. Dust-covered furniture filled the space, and an antique clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Papers were scattered across the desk, as if someone had left in a hurry. As we explored the room, a sudden chill swept over me. I turned to see Emily staring at the wall, her face pale. She pointed to a photograph hanging on the wall. It was a black and white picture of the school's first headmaster and staff. But it wasn't the people that caught my attention. It was the background. The hallway in the photograph was the same one we had just walked through. Before we could process what we were seeing, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. We all jumped, turning towards the source of the noise. The room was plunged into darkness as our flashlights flickered and died. We stayed calm, fumbling for our phones. The weak light from their screens barely cut through the gloom. Suddenly, we heard footsteps approaching from the hallway. Slow, deliberate steps. My heart raced as the doorknob began to turn. The door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure. It stepped into the room, and we could make out the form of an old man, dressed in Victorian-era clothing. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and a cold smile played on his lips. His presence was otherworldly, sending chills down our spines. We were frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. The figure stepped closer, and the room grew colder. His expression turned stern as he seemed to command us to leave. In that moment, I regained my senses. Grabbing Emily's hand, I bolted for the door. The others followed, and we ran down the hallway, our footsteps echoing like gunshots. We didn't stop until we burst through the door to the auditorium, gasping for breath. We never spoke of what happened that day, but we all agreed to avoid the archives and the forgotten hallway. Mrs. Henderson accepted our report, though it was far from complete. Years later, I still think about that encounter. I've tried to rationalize it, to tell myself it was just a trick of the light or an overactive imagination, but deep down, I know what we saw was real. Blackwood High holds its secrets tightly, and some doors are better left unopened.